going to talk Tamworth now. We're going to be joined any second now by a man who knows, fair to say, a bit more than we do about the team that we're going to be playing on Sunday. Graeme is going to be joining us very shortly. Here he is, Graeme Bryce. Welcome to An Echo of Glory. Thank you very much for joining us. Midlands correspondent. You got Gary here, you got Jake, who you know, and I'm Jake as well. Just to confuse you. Thanks for coming on. Obviously, Tottenham playing Tamworth at the weekend. Sounds like you've been pretty busy this week. What have you been up to?
Yeah, we've been given great access to Tamworth by the club. The Sun are actually sponsoring Tamworth for the game, and Andy Peaks has given us full access to the players behind the scenes. I know a bit about the club anyway. My lad plays for the academy there. I've coached there for 5 years as well. So, you know, it's a bit of a labour of love this week for me.
Absolutely. Well, you've earned it. What can you tell then Tottenham fans? What should they know about the Tamworth team or Tamworth? Obviously we know about the artificial pitch, but any other kind of tidbits that we should be knowing ahead of the game?
Yeah, Tom Tonks is the first name that comes to mind. I mean, he just launches long throws like nobody's business. There is nobody like him since Rory Delap. He says he's never measured it, how far he can go, but he has to actually take something off his throws, because if he didn't, he'd throw it beyond the far post all the time. So he actually takes a bit out of it. But what it means is that he can shell them in with unbelievable accuracy. Tamworth played Barnet earlier in the season. Barnet are full time and they're as professional as Spurs will be with their analysts of Tamworth, and they trained for 2 days solid, not giving away any throws. And they kept saying during the game, "Don't concede a throw, don't concede a throw," and they restricted them to one throw in that day. If Spurs can do that, they'll take away 50% of Tamworth's armoury. Otherwise, Jazz Singh's a very good goalkeeper at National League level. He's really missed the consistency. And Dan Craney up front is an old-fashioned English-style up-and-atom striker who a couple of seasons ago scored 40 goals in a season, was up there with Erling Haaland.
Yeah, well, no doubt we're going to be in for a tough time then if we concede throw-ins. What about, I know I was just reading, Tamworth, they're still a part-time club. Now, back in the day, of course, whenever you played a team from outside the Football League, they were basically all part-time and you used to get those stories of, you know, butchers and posties and that kind of thing. Now, most of the clubs are full-time, but Tamworth's still part-time. Are there any of those kind of stories? Any guys having to quit the day job to turn out on Sunday?
Yeah, well, pretty much. With it being a Sunday, it won't be so bad. But, I mean, Tom Tonks, I was interviewing him before the Huddersfield game, and he runs a sandwich van.
Excellent.
And he was saying that quite often he'll get in at 2:30 in the morning, 3:00 in the morning from an away game played on a Tuesday night. And he's up again and he's in the gym again at 6:30 in the morning. And then he does his sandwich round and then he's back in the gym again. I mean, these guys are so dedicated. You know, sometimes they put some of the pros to shame. Yesterday, I spoke to Callum Cockrell-Mollett. So Cockrell's a good Spurs link there.
Yeah.
And he's a zip salesman. So, of course, we had to get in the Sun pun that he's chosen a career with more ups and downs in football.
He sells zips, as in like the zip on my jacket?
As in the zip in your jacket.
Now that is a story.
He says that he used to, when he played for Walsall up until he was 22 and then he was released. And he said that people used to ask him, "What do you do for a living?" And he said, "I play football." And people would say, "What, you're having me on?" And he said, "No, I'm a football player." He said, "Now people ask me what I do and I say I sell zips." He says, and they still don't believe me.
There's been a bit of controversy around this game from within Tamworth with the ticket pricing. Tell us more about that. How's that gone down? And how's that been received? And has that created a bit of a distance between the fans and the board? What's the situation?
Yeah, I think that to be honest, I hope I'm not putting rose-coloured specs on here, but I think it's been a bit overplayed, and I think it's been a bit harsh on the club. I mean, let's face it, it's 12 years ago since they played Premier League opposition. They played Everton in the Cup at Goodison and lost 2-0. So these events come along once every decade for Tamworth. So they charged 38 quid for standing tickets, 42 for the stand. And they got hammered. And I can understand why, because the fans are saying, well, look, we've stuck by you through thick and thin. The minute you get a big tie, you're hammering us. And I get that completely. But at the same time, it's a one-off occasion, really. And you're paying to play to see Premier League players. Spurs will have a smattering of first-team players out there. So I see it from both sides. But the important thing is, Tamworth reckon they'll raise about £250,000, about £250,000 from this tie in pure profit. They've already invested some of that because we exclusively revealed today that Andy Peakes is now going to go full-time. Now, he worked in a college before and he was struggling to get time off, and he obviously couldn't give absolutely everything to the job. When he wanted to scout players, he had to get permission off from work. Now he's going to be full-time. And that's a massive difference. I mean, Tamworth have got a really good academy system and they've got lots of kids coming through. Now Andy's going to be able to go and watch all their games during the day, something that he's never been able to do. And that's going to give those lads a kick to see the first-team manager there. So it's a win-win. And they have got plans. They're going to redevelop the ground. There's improvements. They're going to use that money for the club. So I don't know about you guys. I don't really have a problem with that as long as you invest the cash. Nobody's trousering that cash. It's going back into the club.
100%, I agree.
Graeme, what you've obviously had behind the scenes access this week at Tamworth. What sort of facilities and dressing room are the likes of Solanke, Kulusevski's son, potentially going to be facing on Sunday? Is it your typical sort of Sunday league inside a dressing room?
The dressing rooms are not pretty.
Cold and muddy.
Yes. It's a porta cabin. And you come in through the back car park and there's a sign saying players entrance, and then they walk through that and they just won't know what's hit them. It's a couple of porta cabins. The home dressing room, Spurs would turn their nose up at that, let alone the away one. And I'll just tell you a story. I'm sure they won't mind me sharing it. But yesterday, they've been working this week. Actually, there was a hole in the away dressing room in the roof. So water was pouring in. And they could have just left that and made it as uncomfortable as possible for Spurs, because some of the National League teams have had to put up with that this season. But they've had that mended. They've painted the dressing room in white and navy blue Spurs colours.
Wow, that's
to
nice.
make Spurs feel a bit more at home.
Yeah.
And, the home dressing room, I didn't actually see into the away dressing room. We filmed it for the Sun yesterday, but there's scaffolding up, there's ladders hanging about. I'm sure they'll tidy it up as best they can for Spurs coming, but the lads will need to take it in shifts to get changed, because there's no way you're going to get that size of a squad in that dressing room. The Tamworth home dressing room, they've got 6 showers. I think only 3 of them actually produce hot water.
Proper non-league.
I'm interested. Jake mentioned the artificial pitch. Tell us more about it. What I mean, you get 3G, 4G, 5G, 100. I don't know what it is, right? But tell us a bit about what surface Spurs can expect to face.
Well, it's not the top of the range. It's a 3G, but they did invest heavily in it, and it is decent. It's flat, and the ball will run through on it. Obviously, the bounce is a little bit different, but if you keep it on the deck, it will run through. So if you think about Spurs going to your traditional non-league club at this time of the year, they could have been on a mud heap.
Yeah.
It could have been icy. It could have been, players could have been struggling to run on it. But at least the surface will be true. And we're passing a team like Spurs. It should actually suit them. It's tight. The crowd are really close to the ground. The dugouts are tiny. The Spurs are going to have, the Spurs technical staff will probably stretch out as far as the corner flag. They'll put extra seats out for them, but it'll be right to the corner flag because they carry so many staff these days. I can't see Ange cramming himself into the away dugout somehow. I think he'll be on his feet outside the technical area the whole day. But no, I mean, Spurs have got an artificial training pitch at the training ground, haven't they? So they'll maybe get a session or 2 on that before the game just to prepare them. But you can look at it 2 ways. The ball will bounce a bit differently. The Tamworth boys are all used to it. They're used to the tight dimensions. That'll be new to Spurs. But as far as getting the ball down and playing football, it should actually suit them.
Final question for me, because I know Jake is going to want to ask you your predictions. But final question for me: what's the buzz like around Tamworth at the minute? How's the atmosphere?
Yeah, they could have sold this one out several times over. The club were looking into using the nearby Snowdome to put up big screens for any additional fans for the spillover, and they were going to get catering and stuff. Don't know how that's going just now because the floods, the car park there is completely flooded. In fact, there was a bit of a worry yesterday. I was along, my lad was actually playing. There was 3 academy games taking place on the pitch yesterday. And, we've seen the forecast at -16 and stuff. That could be a problem because the frost set in yesterday. And for the first match, it was completely white. But once the lads started playing on it, it soon disappeared. And it was actually fine by the second game. I know that Tamworth are in discussions with the FA about borrowing covers to put over the pitch. So that should help things. But I've got a slight nagging doubt if it goes to -16, that could be a problem.
Yeah, not least for the people, the players and all of that. So go on then. Well, I just wanted to get a couple of things actually from you before you go. Go on, give us your prediction. Come on. What are we thinking? Can Tamworth escape with anything? A goal even?
Right. This is the most difficult one to predict because if Spurs go out and they score a couple of goals early, then, Tamworth lost 7-0 at Barnet earlier this season. You could be talking double figures. It's not unrealistic to think that Spurs could take 10. However, if Spurs don't fancy it and Tamworth are in their faces from the start and Tonks launches a long throw in and it's somehow like Huddersfield, Dan Craney was in fist flying and everything on top of the keeper, the ball landed up in the net. If Spurs find themselves a goal down, and I know they've done well against Liverpool on Wednesday, but if they find themselves a goal down, the pressure will just keep mounting and the Tamworth players will keep running. That's when it could become difficult. So you can go from, you can go from 10-0 to what I think it might be. I'm going to go 3-1 for Spurs.
I'll take it.
I think Tamworth might sneak a goal somewhere with a set piece or something, but I was asked yesterday, and I'm going to stick with my 3-1 for Spurs.
3-1 on a frozen pitch. We'll take that. And just lastly, then, how does the rest of the week look for you? What are you doing work-wise today, tomorrow, and where can people find your work?
It's all online at the Sun or in the paper itself. Today we broke the story about Andy Peaks being given the full-time contract, and we also had Callum Cockrell-Mollett and his zip business. We started our week's coverage with Chris Ray, who's a name that you guys will no doubt recognise, ex-Arsenal double winner. His lad plays up front for Tamworth. He's an ex-Arsenal Academy kid, so I'm sure he'll be desperate to get a Spurs shirt at the end of the game. Sorry, I've lost my train of thought there. What else were you wanting there?
I think you've covered that. What are you doing this week? Where can we find it? In the Sun? And you just
Yeah, so with Chris Ray then, Tuesday was Andy Peake's first game in charge of Tamworth. They played away at Leiston. It was a 3:00 kickoff, and at 3:00, Andy and the entire team were in the social club sinking pints because the pitch was waterlogged, the game was off. He sensed there wasn't a good atmosphere about the place. They were in relegation trouble. He took them to the bar, insisted they all had a couple of pints, took them back on the bus from Suffolk for a couple of hours. And he said people started talking to each other, which I hadn't been doing for a while there. The next week, they beat Barwell 6-0. They went on a 13-match unbeaten run. From there, they've never looked back. Back-to-back promotions. They're in the National League. Favourites to go down, but this morning they're 17th. 7 points clear of the relegation zone with a game in hand and a game against Spurs to look forward to.
Absolutely.
Lovely stuff. Graeme, thank you very much for coming on. I know you're very busy, so we'll let you go. Enjoy the game and have a fantastic rest of the week.
Thanks. Tonight, I should just mention that Andy Peaks and the Tamworth players are meeting the national press for the first time. So, because they had a game on Tuesday, tonight is the only night they will train this week. So, I think it's Spurs week. I know that the professionals talk about how difficult it is. Tamworth will get an hour and a half on the frozen plastic pitch tonight, and that will be their only preparation for the game against Spurs.
Wow.
Good luck to them. All right, cheers, Graeme.
Enjoy it.
We'll speak
Thank
to
you
you
very
soon.
much.
Cheers.
Thanks, lads.
All the
Thank
best.
you.
Take care.
Cheers.